Hey! Wow, there's so many people here. This is awesome. Awesome. And all of you out there, hello. This is so exciting. Thank you so much for having me. And has this just been a great morning? I've heard from so many people how wonderful it's been. Let's give a round of applause. And I also want to say it's been really interesting to hear the same things over. Like you heard Pam talk about mindset. You heard Carpe Diem. Hey, and Kathy, by the way, where did Kathy go? Carpe Diem, did you never watch Dead Poets Society? I mean, I know you're younger than I am, but I was thinking, wait a second. Isn't that where we all learned what Carpe Diem was? It's from Dead Poets Society. So anyway, we are elated to have all of you here, and I'm excited to participate and actually be here face to face. So congratulations to TeamWomen for 10 years. I've only been a part of it for half of that time because I'm super young. No, that's not why. But I'm so thankful for the organization and what we've been able to do and accomplish. And my passion in the organization is the Empower Academy, and we actually just had an academy yesterday. So if you ever have a need, and we're going to talk about it later this afternoon, if you ever have a need for a girls leadership academy, call us because it's an amazing program and the young women get so much out of it. So, all right, that's my little commercial for TeamWomen, but I want to tell you, I am excited to be here today, and I want to tell you why. Because for the last 4 years, I have been on the Leadership Conference Committee. And for the last 4 years, I wanted to raise my hand and say, I want to speak. I want to speak. I got something to say. I didn't know what it was at the time, but I got something to say. And so for the past 4 years, I've looked at being on that committee. I've looked at the prospect of speakers. I said, no way. Have you all been here every single year and seen how amazing these speakers are? Every single year I put my hand down. I put my hand down because these women were amazing. They had amazing titles. They came from large organizations. They came from their own businesses. They were charismatic. They had all of these things going for them. And I said, no way. I put my hand down every single time. And I put my hand down because I said, I'm not good enough to stand on that stage. I'm not worth the space to stand on the stage. Do I have the right message? Could I really impact people? And my hand went down. Until last year. I said to Katie, I want to speak at the 10th annual conference. And so we got to go through the leadership or the leader process. So I went through the right channels, everyone. And interestingly enough, when I got to the meeting and it showed the agenda with some of the speakers on there, and my name was on there. And it was on there for Imposter Syndrome. I was experiencing Imposter Syndrome at that time. I just did. Let's just say that. But the good news about it, and this is why I'm excited to be here, is because I do have a story to tell. I have a story to tell in a process that I hope all of you will feel included into what imposter syndrome is, and that you all are brave enough and you all are smart enough to conquer it. And that's why I'm excited, because I have conquered it, and I continue to conquer it. I'm not saying I'm not nervous. My hands are shaking. Don't look at them. I'm not saying I'm not nervous. But I no longer have imposter syndrome. I have conquered it, and I want to share with you how I've done it. But it doesn't just happen overnight. Imposter syndrome doesn't just happen overnight, so I'm hoping this works. There we go. This is where it all began. That's me. So yes, you can use this as blackmail. That's totally fine, because a lot of you know me. But it starts it goes back way deep. And it goes back to 3rd grade, 9 years old. And I want you all to picture this. It's the year-end symposium where all of the classes are going down to the gym and they're all shoving into the gym. I'm going to say I don't know if they ever do that again, but they're all shoving into the gym, and we're all sitting there crisscross applesauce. And it's 1980. And at this year-end symposium, it's an opportunity for Mr. Berger, our principal, to share some of the accolades that have happened over the year, some of the different stories, kind of pump everybody up. Gonna miss you for the summer, gonna miss the sixth graders, so on and so forth. And then he also said, well, we also have some awards. And here are the awards that we had. 100% attendance. Now, by the way, I really wanted that award. I didn't get it, but I'm sure there was a miscalculation. But 100% attendance. And again, I don't think elementaries will do that again. 100% attendance. The presidential award. Do y'all remember the presidential award? Yeah. So the presidential award. Then they also gave out the best readers. How many people read the most books in each grade? So this symposium is getting a little long now for elementary students. And you have to remember in elementary, in the gym, it smells a little bit like the lunch. It smells a little bit like unbathed children. So just think of it that way. But in 1980, when we're sitting down and Mr. Berger says, I have 2 more awards to give. And these are our pinnacle awards. And these awards are called the Super Citizenship Award. And one goes to one person from 1 through 3rd grade, and another goes to another student 4th through 6th grade. And he just decided to explain it. The teachers voted, and they voted on a couple of things. Kindness to others, helper, leadership, and probably attendance. I'm just going to say that. But that's what he was talking about. And so when he said this is a really important award and we want to praise these kids for getting this award. And so as we're sitting there and we're all waiting, we have no idea who's getting this award. First of all, I didn't even know we had this award. But as we're sitting there, he called my name. Right? Huh? Oh my gosh, this is so exciting because I feel like I'm back in 1980. But he called my name, Laura Boyd, Super Citizenship. I don't even know what that means, probably at 9 years old. But so as I kind of crisscross through the classes, and I'm coming up to the stage, and I'm kind of nervous, probably like I am today, right? And I come up to the stage, and he hands it to me, and he says, I want to tell you some of the things that the teacher said about you. And this is why you deserve this Super Citizenship Award. You were a good line leader, my favorite job of all time. I was like, oh my gosh, really? Okay. Line leader. I also was very helpful to the teachers. Of course I was. I mean, leadership is about serving, right? We learned that earlier. So helping the teachers. I also helped Tony Giannopoulos every day for winter. I'd help him get his boots and I don't know why, but that's what I did. So he's telling the story and he's just here, he's just giving some testimonies from our teachers, which is awesome. And so I am excited, but here's what I want to tell you is when I look in the back of the room, the most exciting thing is there is a woman in the back of the room who happens to be my mother. And for some of you may not have even been born in 1980, but if you remember 1980, there wasn't a lot of technology. And so you really were in your offices from 9 to 5. That's why they had the movie 9 to 5. But you were basically in your office from 9 to 5. And so if you were going to leave, you were done for the day. You had to take the whole day off. There wasn't a lot of flexibility. So to see my mom in the back of the room, standing there, I knew this was a big deal. This award was a big deal. For her to take time off, it's awesome. So as I'm beaming, just like I am right now, beaming, and we all say goodbye to my mother and we're walking back, going back to our classroom, my best friend, Heidi, leans over to me and she says, hey, Laura, you know why you got that award, don't you? I'm like, super citizen, Avi. I was a trendsetter with the Avi. No. But I said, well, I don't know, super citizenship. The teachers voted on it. And she looked at me and she said, no, it's because the teachers feel sorry for you. And that's okay. Well, wow, I didn't think I was going to get that. But that's okay. She's 9. Let's give her some grace. Let's give her some grace, friends. But what we all didn't realize is that day, how those words would impact me the rest of my life. Those words were going to impact me the rest of my life. And let me tell you why. Because I didn't realize it, but in my subconscious, I was never going to get an award because someone felt sorry for me. I was never going to get something because it wasn't on my own merit. So I overworked. I overachieved. I overperfected. I overpleased. That was my career. I had a really nice career, by the way, but the challenge with that is it's not sustainable. It's not sustainable. So you can have all that until you don't. What does that look like for you? What does that look like for you? So what I want you to do is I want you to think about your own stories. Maybe it was your best friend, Heidi. Again, Grace, she's 9. But what are your own stories that you're telling yourself? I'd like you to just take a few seconds or 30 seconds. I'll give you 30. But just take some time to think about what are those stories that, wow, they keep coming back. They come back. And you know what they do? They stop us. They stop us and they allow us to feel like an imposter. I'm giving you your 30 seconds. Okay, I'm cutting it short now. All right. So how many of you know what is imposter syndrome? How many of you know what imposter syndrome is? How many of you are experts at imposter syndrome? How many of you are experts because it impacts you often? Absolutely. It's interesting because in the last couple of weeks, I've had so many, this is why I love Team Women, right? I can't tell you how many people have said, Laura, I'm super excited to hear your imposter syndrome presentation. Laura, you're going to do great. Okay, that's awesome, but it makes me super nervous every time you tell me that. But I think it's interesting because a lot of people are trying to figure out what is imposter syndrome? What is it? And so I don't care what you call it, if it's imposter syndrome, if it's imposter phenomenon, if it's fraud syndrome, if it's perceived fraudulence, or even if it's imposter experience. We've heard all of these different terms over the last couple of decades. We may not know what it is. So today I want to tell you what it is so that you understand what it looks like and feels like and how you can possibly conquer it or work towards conquering it. So imposter, what is it? What is it? Because we all call it different things. But it's really our persistent inability to believe that we have achieved success based on our abilities, skills, talents, and gifts. That's what imposter syndrome is. Many times we say, well, we feel like a fraud. I don't want to get up here and talk about imposter syndrome, and then people say, well, she doesn't even know what she's talking about. Right? I don't want to go for that new opportunity because I don't know all the details. And so here's my definition. Now, you might want to write this down because someday this might be in the dictionary.com. But so my definition is this. Really what imposter syndrome is it's 2 things. It's the thoughts and the judgment we have in our own heads, the stories we tell ourselves in our own heads, right here. And it's the others. It's the others. And what you don't want is you don't want them to find out that what you're thinking in your head. Another way to put it is you have your internal insights, how you're feeling, what you're thinking, again, how you're judging yourself. But maybe on the outside, you look different to everybody. So to me, imposter syndrome is the space between. It's the space between. I see some of you are taking pictures. Now is a really good time to take a picture of that slide. But it's the space between, right? what we want to do is we need to recognize what imposter syndrome is and that we might be feeling it. And what we also want to do is we want that gap to get smaller. That's how we conquer it. How can we take this gap and make it smaller? That's how we conquer imposter syndrome. So the good news for you is this impacts so many people. And interestingly enough, when you're sitting there, sometimes you feel like, I think I'm the only one that has this feeling. Or sometimes I don't know what I'm doing, but wow, Eric knows what he's doing. Pam knows what she's doing. Jamie knows what she's doing. Linda knows what she's doing. Everybody else knows what they're doing except for me. And the good news is 70 to 90% of us have experienced this. And it doesn't matter what kind of person you are, you've experienced it. So what they found when they started doing research at the very beginning, they said it really impacts women most often. And you'll still hear that today. But other research, and I believe it to be true, is that it impacts men also equally. And here's why. Because I think women actually are talking about it. That's just part of our nature. That's how maybe we've grown up in our culture, is to maybe have these social relationships and talk about it. Where men tend to hide that feeling. And interestingly enough, this is such a good case study. Last night we had friends over, and they have a 25-year-old who had, she and her boyfriend came over to visit with us, and we were chatting, and we were talking about imposter syndrome. And he happened to say, I don't have that. Nope. And the daughter was like, oh my gosh, I can totally feel I over-prepare. I've got this job interview. I have 35 flip charts around my room. I'm getting ready for my job interview. And he's like, I don't have that. So later on in the conversation, which is fine, no judgment, but later on in the conversation, he says to me, or we're just talking, he didn't say it to me, but he was just saying, I am a go-getter, and I don't like it when people tell me, wow, you're really lucky to be moving that fast. He's like, that really gets to me. And I go, what? That is what we're talking about. That's imposter syndrome. He's like, it is? Yes. You don't want to feel like you got something because you were lucky. You want people to say, you have worked really hard. You have great abilities. I believe in you to do that well. I don't think he was as excited as I said, I'm going to talk about this tomorrow. I will not tell you his name, but so it does happen to so many people. Maya Angelou, I have read every book through college. She was everything to me. I loved her journey, her story, her poetry. I named my daughter after her. Loved everything about Maya Angelou. Friends, she had imposter syndrome. I never read that until I was doing research on this in the last few years. Every single time she wrote a book, she's like, hey, they're going to find out. I don't know what I'm talking about. How many of you have felt that way before? I mean, all these books you're all writing. Yes, it impacts so many of us. So I want to give you just some practical tools, and I want to give them to you through stories that have helped me. So the first thing I want to talk about is awareness, and I know Pam talked about it, self-awareness. We need to be aware. You cannot make a difference or a change until you're aware of something. So I want to share a story with you, and this just happened to me a few years ago. I started realizing something wasn't sitting right. I had this external image of myself where people are like, wow, she's got a great family, her business is skyrocketing. Okay, they didn't say that. But her business is going really well. She's hiring a new person. She works out every day, loves all this stuff, right? That was my external side. Wow, if they would have taken the can opener and saw what was going on in the inside, I didn't match the outside. That inside looked different. And it got to a point that it got me into a depression. And so I needed to figure out, what is this? Because I too am a driver. And I was like, I am not having this. But I couldn't figure out how to get out of it. And so I actually sought help. I hired a coach out of California, and she helped me define what it was, that it was indeed imposter syndrome. And what we decided was that all of these stories I have in my head kept reoccurring. Because the one thing that we have to remember is we've got about 60,000 thoughts that go on in our head in a day. That's a lot. And the weird thing is 59,000 of those are the same ones we had the day before. So these stories and meanings we put behind things are habitual. Because we've been given this amazing brain to have us be habitual creatures so that we're fast, right? It's that flight. It's that fear. I see something, I can move on a dime. That's why our brains were created that way. And so the challenge with that is if you have those negative stories and those past stories of Heidi saying people felt sorry for you, you're going to have those they're going to keep coming up. So you've got to figure out how to conquer them. Because the one thing that some of you might not know, but Heidi knew, is that at 9 years old, I had already moved 12 times. At 9 years old, I was living in a single parent home. And my dad was chemically dependent. And I was a welfare child. And what Heidi knew was that we were moving that summer. So for Heidi to say that, it could have been true. Maybe they did feel sorry for me. But that's okay, because if you look at the testimonies of what the teacher said, I believe all of those things to be true too. You have to be aware of where these stories are coming from. You have to be aware of what are the stories and where are they coming from. And so one of the things that, even raising my hand to speak, and imposter syndrome just starts creeping in. It's like a video game going on in my head. Because what happens is, for me, I needed to see something tangible. So for me, I needed a quick pause. I needed something to say, stop. I need these thoughts to stop. I need these stories to stop. And so for me, it's this crazy orange hand. I don't know why. So it comes up often where I need to stop myself. I know some of my clients say, well, it's, I have to go for a walk, or I have my tribe or my trusted people who I go to. And they're like, that's a story you're telling yourself. Let's unpack that. Just for some of you that aren't my friend, just be thankful, because we say that a lot with my friends. I'm like, let's unpack that. So anyway, but that, you have to find something. So once you're aware of it, you've got to find something that's going to stop that thought and cause you to pause. What is it for you? Think about that. What could it be for you? We've talked about faith today. That's a big part of who I am. That's also what helps. But what is it for you? So think about that. And even if you're brave, you can write it down. There's a little notepad area on the back. So for me, it is this orange hand. And then what ends up happening is I need to look at that and I say, these thoughts that I have, do they help me or hinder me? The thoughts I have going on in my head, or about the situation, or about the opportunity, or about me putting myself out there for a relationship, whatever it looks like or whatever you need, does it help or hinder you, those thoughts? And then I want to take it one step further. This is really important. I don't know if any of you know Byron Katie, but I love her work. She's very meditative. And I think I love her work on meditation because I'm terrible at that. So I love watching her because I'm like, look at it, she's really good at that. I can't do it. I'm okay with it. So one of the things that she talks about are these 4 questions. And she talks about them. When you have a thought in your head, the first thing I want you to ask yourself is this true? Is this true? And then the second question looks like the first. And you're like, well, Laura, is that what's going on here? But it's really just to say, is it absolutely true? Can you actually absolutely make sure that it's true? That's the second question. Because a lot of times you can say yes to the first question. And then the second question, you're like, well, no, I don't really know. And then the third question, how do I act when I believe this thought? So look at me. Let's talk about this speaking opportunity. I wanted to raise my hand for the past 4 years, and I never have because I was never good enough to be on the stage. I was never worth the space on the stage. I wanted to raise my hand every year. But how do I act when I think that I'm not good enough or I'm not worth the space? I put my hand down. I don't go for that opportunity. So the fourth question is, who would you be without that thought? Who would you be without that thought? Think about it. That's where her meditation comes in. Okay, so if you're really good at this, this is really good for you. But that's where the meditation comes in. Who would you be? Visualize. What would that look like? I had to visualize myself up on the stage. Yes, I am as good as Pam Borden. We might have different styles. We might have different approaches to things, but I am as good as Pam Borden. Is she in here? Because don't tell her I said that. So that I want to make sure that you understand, who are you without that thought? Those are 4 questions I want you to ask yourself when you catch yourself in some of the stories that keep repeating themselves. Okay, step 2, my favorite step of this process. How many of you heard the phrase, fake it till you make it? I'm assuming most of your hands are going to go up. Okay, now I want to know, how many of you faked it till you made it? Okay, now I want to ask, how many of you have made it in life? If somebody said, have you made it in life? How many of you would raise your hand? How many of you have made it in life? Yeah, left hand's a little more hesitant. I'm not sure. I mean, I don't want anybody to see that I've actually thought that. Well, that's your own. What do you think it is? Yeah. Katie, you come on up and you do this with me. Come on, Katie. Katie wants to be a speaker. We're going to see her up here next year. You have to go through the process. It's laborious. All right. So here's what I want to tell you. Fake it till you make it. Don't do that anymore. Stop it. All right. Drop the mic. No. Here's why. I want to tell you why I want you to stop doing that. Because most often, ask friends of yours, hey, have you made it? Have you made it in life? How many of them would actually say yes? And interestingly enough, I had a partner at a CPA firm that I was working at. He said, Laura, you get to the top of the mountain and you say, what's the next highest mountain? And you get to that highest mountain and you say, where's the next highest mountain? In my head, have I actually made it? No, I keep searching. So if I keep searching, what am I doing every single day? I'm faking it. If I believe that this is the true statement, fake it till you make it, and I never make it, every day I'm faking it. Let's go back to what imposter is. If you're consistently thinking that you're faking it every day, aren't you more inclined to be an imposter? Yeah, sit on that, friends. Sit on that. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to think of it differently. I want you to believe to achieve, and it's exactly what we heard this morning. I want you to believe to achieve. No more faking this. But it takes a lot of work to start believing in yourself. I think Jasmine said it. Right, Jasmine? Yes. Jasmine said it. You need to believe in yourself. You need to believe in your abilities. And I will tell you firsthand, that's really hard work. Because I'll tell you how many times Katie Burke can tell me, Laura, you're an amazing coach. You're an amazing facilitator. You're an amazing speaker. and they just go right through me. Okay, they did. Now I've conquered it, remember? But they used to go right through me. But until I actually believed I am a pretty good speaker, not the best, but I'm pretty good, right? I'm doing the best I can. I'm a pretty good facilitator. I'm a lover of people. I'm a lover of building people up. I love impacting people. And the reason I work hard now is because I'm enjoying what I'm doing. There's a difference, friends. There's a difference. And when I enjoy what I do, I believe in myself and my abilities. So no more faking it. Believe to achieve. Okay, there are 2 more steps, so, there's a lot to go here. So the third step, reframe your mindset. Pam talked about it today too. I think Jasmine talked about it. We've all talked about mindset. The panel talked about mindset. You've got to be aware of what's happening in your mind, because that is a powerful tool in your body. And it causes you to go one way or the other. And we all have choices. So if you look at the bottom of this diagram, there's a moment of choice that we have every day. How do you want to show up? How do you want to feel inside? How do you want to close the gap? And so what we want to do is we want to think about our meaning. And when we think about that meaning, what's the feeling that we have? So when I have to work on my mindset for the speaking opportunity, I had to say, I am good enough, right? So the feeling I wanted to have is I wanted to be confident that last year I could raise my hand and say, Katie, I want to speak at the 10th annual conference. So I had to change the meaning. I had to change the meaning of what this felt like. And let me tell you how I did that. One of the things is I said, it's not a competition. Even though I know competition is Pam's one of her top 5 strengths, it's also one of my top 5 strengths. And so the interesting thing on that is we could compete. But I had to reframe my mindset to say, what if we brought different things to the table? We have the same goal. We have the opportunity. We want to impact others. We're lovers of people. We want to raise people up. What if I got to impact her? What if I got to enhance what she was doing already? How can you reframe some of those opportunities that you see as negative? How could you make them look different? So that you go for them and you raise your hand. Because it's going to give you an opportunity to have a different behavior. That's when you will raise your hand. But the choice is yours. You be your best self. And the 4th step is really compassion. Wow, this is one of my hardest things. Now, all of you sitting there that know me pretty well are like, really? No, it's not compassion for you all, because apparently I'm really good at that. But I do love it. I love people so much, and I love seeing people excel and succeed and believe in themselves, and when the wheels go on and all those kinds of things. That is where the compassion comes in. But you also have to have compassion for yourself. What does that look like? I'm harder on myself. It's harder to give compassion to me. It feels a little selfish, honestly. But compassion is about giving compassion to others. It's giving compassion to ourselves. Compassion is the biggest motivator for change. Because what happens, if you truly want to change and you want to recognize imposter syndrome and you want to be aware of it and you want to shift your mindset, you're going to fail. I'm sorry to say, I have failed so many times in the last few years that I've been working on this for myself. But that's where compassion comes in. Because when you do fail, you have to give yourself grace. And that's what I want you to think about is how can you give yourself grace? You have to be very intentional about what that looks like, that grace. Because if you can do it for others, you can do it for yourself. So I want to just leave with this, is if we thought about what we've been talking about this whole time, What if we lived in a world, what if we could love ourselves wholly and completely and believe in ourselves? What would that look like? What if we felt like we could share the stage with others who were just as good as us, but maybe a little different? Maybe they spoke different. Maybe they brought different stories. Maybe they're funnier. I doubt it. I doubt it. But what if we were open to sharing that stage and saying what we wanted to say? And what if we felt like we were enough? What does that look like for each of you? Because it's different for each of you. So that's what I want to leave you with. You are enough. You are worthy to be on the stage. Okay, well, don't all put your name in for speaking, because that's going to cause a ruckus on the leadership committee. Unless you want to, do it. But you are enough. You are worthy. Be your best self. Be your best leader, because the world needs them. Thank you.